It took me 30 years to realize this is the proper way to store dried onions. Welcome back to Tracy Tips. How do you usually store dried onions at home? I used to think dried onions were the easiest thing to deal with in the kitchen. Just bring them home, toss them in a plastic bag, and store them in the cabinet. And that's it. Who would have thought that just a few weeks later, when I opened the bag, every bulb had sprouted, and some had even turned mushy and rotten. Throwing them out felt like such a waste. It wasn't until recently that I discovered that if stored properly, dried onions really are one of the easiest ingredients to keep. In this video, I'm going to share 5 simple yet incredibly effective tips to help you keep dried onions fresh, mold-free, and sprout-free, even if you bring home a whole sack. Especially tip number 2 and number 5. I honestly didn't expect them to work that well. Method 1. Store in a plastic basket lined with charcoal and perforated paper to absorb moisture. Dried onions are a common seasoning bulb that every household has in the kitchen. They enhance the flavor of everyday dishes and add nutritional value. At Tracy's house, there's always a basket like this, ready to use day by day. However, if you want to use them daily, you must know how to store them properly to prevent them from getting damp, sprouting, and rotting. Especially if you live in a humid climate, particularly during the rainy season, you need to be even more careful. The best solution is to apply this storage method. It will help keep your dried onions dry for much longer. You just need to prepare a plastic basket with ventilation holes, then prepare a bit of charcoal. You can use charcoal made from burning tree branches. Place a few pieces of charcoal in the plastic basket and spread them out evenly. Charcoal is a material known for its excellent moisture-absorbing ability, and it's something people in the past often used to preserve food. Next, prepare a sheet of paper and punch small holes in it for ventilation. You can also use scissors to cut tiny holes. Then place a layer of perforated paper on top of the charcoal, and finally put the dried onions on top. The paper helps absorb the moisture that spreads from the onions, while the charcoal helps deodorize, deeply absorb moisture, and limit bacterial growth. The two combined create a kind of natural protective layer, keeping the onions from getting moldy or soggy, no matter how damp the weather gets. Finally, place the basket in a cool, well-ventilated area, away from sunlight and high temperatures. With this method, you can safely store onions for up to 2 months while still keeping them dry and fresh. No need for a refrigerator or specialized moisture-absorbing packets. Where are you watching from? And how's your day going so far? Let's learn some helpful tips to make life a little easier together. Oh, and here's a little tip. Make sure to hit that follow button right now before you forget. Videos like this are easy to lose track of. And who knows? You might not be able to find this channel again later. Also, if you've bought a lot of dried onions and want to store them in the fridge, you can still use this same method. You just need to prepare a plastic container or a glass jar with a tight-fitting lid, then line the bottom of the jar with a bit of crushed charcoal, followed by a layer of perforated paper. The paper helps absorb surface moisture, while the charcoal will absorb the deeper humidity from the air, helping to create an ideally dry and ventilated environment for the onions. After that, place the dried onions into the jar, seal the lid tightly, and place it in the refrigerator's cooler compartment. This method is especially effective during humid or prolonged rainy days, when onions are very likely to mold even after being thoroughly dried. Thanks to this natural moisture-absorbing liner, the onions can stay good for up to 2 months without spoiling, helping you always have ingredients ready for a homemade meal without needing to run to the market every day. Method 2. Burying onions in a rice container. This is a folk tip that's both simple and clever, which Tracy learned from Grandma. That day, Grandma came over to Tracy's house and showed off her cooking skills with a shrimp salad dish. But when it was time to use the onions, every bulb had sprouted or was almost rotten. That's when Grandma taught me this method. Since that day, every time I come home from the market with onions, I always put them into the rice container. Here's exactly how to do it. You just need to pick dried onions that are still firm, not bruised or sprouting. Then prepare a plastic container filled with rice and gently bury the onions in the middle of the rice. This is the driest and most stable spot. Rice has a natural moisture-absorbing ability, so it will keep the onions dry at all times, minimizing the risk of mold or sogginess. Thanks to that, the onions can be stored much longer without needing any tools or preservatives at all. Not only that, the natural pungent smell of onions also helps repel weevils in the rice, a double benefit for the family kitchen. Every time I need to use them, I just open the lid, grab a few bulbs, and close it back. It's very convenient, clean, and tidy. With this simple yet effective method, dried onions can be stored for several months while still staying fresh, fragrant, and not spoiled. A small tip that helps protect both the rice container and the batch of onions in one go. Method 3. Using rock salt. Besides the two methods above, storing dried onions with rock salt is also very effective. I've tried it and have to admit, it's simpler and way more effective than I expected. You just need to prepare a bamboo basket, a cloth bag, or a plastic basket with ventilation holes. Then sprinkle a thin layer of rock salt on the bottom. After that, place the dried onions on top as usual. Rock salt has a very strong moisture-absorbing ability, which will help keep the onions always dry and reduce the growth of mold, especially effective during the rainy, damp season or on days with prolonged humid weather. Besides absorbing moisture, salt also has mild antibacterial properties, helping to prevent bacteria and unpleasant odors from building up in the onions. The important thing is that you don't need to use airtight containers or a refrigerator. Just placing the basket of onions in a cool, well-ventilated place is enough. Thanks to that simple layer of salt, the onions can stay dry, fragrant, and free from sprouting or turning mushy for several weeks or more. Just a small folk tip, but it helps the home cook stay in control, no matter how the weather changes. Method 4. If you've ever peeled onions with tears streaming down your face, eyes burning so much that you had to stop midway, then you'll definitely need this tip. I tried it myself and was truly surprised. It's not only easier to peel, but I no longer worry about crying over onions. You just need to soak the onions in clean water for about 5 minutes before peeling. At that point, the outer skin softens and becomes much easier to remove. At the same time, the spicy essential oils in the onions are also subdued by the water, so they no longer irritate the eyes. No more stinging or burning like usual. After peeling, rinse the onions again, then gently pat them dry with a clean towel until they are completely dry. Next, use some moisture-absorbing paper towels, or thick napkins, to line the bottom of an airtight container. Arrange the peeled onions inside. Close the lid tightly and store the container in the fridge. With this method, peeled onions can last up to 3 months, making it very convenient when you need them quickly. This method helps absorb any remaining moisture, keeping the onions dry while still fresh, without molding or becoming soft. Method 5. Pickling onions in vinegar. If you want to both preserve peeled onions and create a flavorful side dish, then pickling onions in sweet vinegar is a great choice. This dish not only helps store the onions longer, but also adds a tasty touch to everyday meals, especially perfect when served with fried foods, grilled dishes, noodles, or pho. The method is very simple. First, mix vinegar, sugar, and salt in a ratio that suits your taste, and stir until everything is completely dissolved. If you enjoy a little bit of heat, you can also add a few slices of fresh chili to give it a nice kick. Then, place the peeled shallots into a clean glass jar or plastic container and pour the vinegar mixture over them until fully submerged. Close the lid tightly and store it in the refrigerator. After 1 to 2 days, the onions will absorb the flavors, becoming tender, yet still maintaining their crunch. This pickled onion dish not only helps cut the greasiness when eating fried or oily foods, but also stimulates the appetite, adding a vibrant and balanced note to your daily meals. With this simple pickling method, the onions can be stored for over a week in the fridge while still retaining their original flavor. This is a 2-in-1 tip. It helps prevent onion waste while giving you a delicious side dish, simple yet full of charm for every home kitchen. So that's it. Tracy has now finished sharing 5 simple yet effective ways to keep dried onions fresh for longer. No mold, no sprouting. I hope you'll try them out and discover the method that works best for your own kitchen. And if you have any personal tips or real-life experiences, don't hesitate to leave a comment below so Tracy and everyone else can learn from you. Click like if you found this video helpful, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss out on more little kitchen secrets to make everyday cooking feel a whole lot easier. Wishing you joy, good health, and a kitchen that's always warm and full of love.